back from my vacation, so now I'm back to kind of frigid cold weather. Well, it's not that bad, but it's pretty bad for a Texan girl. Actually, I am making a video in regards to kind of a follow up with the last video because I received a couple of emails and a Facebook on my Facebook page and a message on my Instagram because that's kind of how I'm getting it around. But in regards to the past video where I kind of touched a little bit on the anxiety part. And I've gotten literally a couple where they wanted to know more about that, and especially one of the viewers actually, she thinks she might be going through it. But my disclaimer is obviously I'm not a psychologist, and also that my thing has been kind of like my whole journey, and I've also lived abroad for a good portion of my, like, I would say a good portion of my career life, because I worked 5 years, almost four or something like that in the States, and now I'm almost working up to 5 years abroad, and I'm at the 4 year mark. So there's been a lot that has happened. My disclaimer obviously is I'm not a psychologist, and I do believe that everybody has their own way of dealing with things. But it is a topic that I wish someone, or when I was thinking about moving abroad, that perhaps it was very open and not as taboo to discuss about. So here goes. I'm going to be quite brutally honest with everybody about kind of my situation, and obviously my situation is quite different, but definitely for people who are interested in moving abroad, whether to get another job or teaching, that way they can kind of know what they're kind of getting themselves into. I'm definitely no expert, but I definitely wish I would have known some of the things that I would be experiencing to mentally prepare myself for it. And also, even though this kind of has like a weird tone to this video, I still do not regret it. I think it still has been the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I don't regret any of it. But I do feel that I do need to kind of disclaim that. And, just take everything that I'm saying here with a grain of salt because it has to do with my experience. So that's it. So I guess what we can start is how it came about. Okay, so it kind of got cold in here, and I went and got me some coffee. So let's see. Discussing of how it came about. I have a couple of theories how it came about for myself, but definitely one of the common threads was the fact that I was constantly adapting, and I never had like a moment to breathe. It was like there's always something, change was the constant, and I was not able to sometimes catch up with myself. And some of the things that were difficult to adapt to would be the following. So one of the things about Madrid particularly is that it's a place where I call it one of two places. It's either you love it or you hate it. And what I mean by love is that it becomes a black hole and nobody leaves ever. They live and then they die here. Or that basically you kind of you meet people that are here for a certain period of time and then they move away and they go back to where either they came from or they move on to bigger and better things. And being alone and kind of establishing yourself in a place, it can be very taxing on you and very exhausting to constantly have to start over and trying to make those connections organically. And it's very, very difficult. So that was definitely like one of the things that sucked and kind of attributed to my anxiety. The constant change and of not having a little support system where you live. The other thing was the milestones that I missed out on, like my family, and my friends. I haven't been able to see a lot of my friends who have had babies, my niece and nephew being born, just things that, of course, that I know I would be there for. And also other people in the country that you become friends with or that you become close with, they don't understand that either because why? They have their family here. So learning how to deal with that and how to cope with that has been something that's been very trying. Um, Other thing, let's see, going back home and then realizing you don't fit in there. I think that to me was kind of the kick in the pants and what started my anxiety to go full throttle. Um, because I didn't feel like I belonged there. It made sense for me not to belong in Spain because I'm not Spanish. I will always be a Texan girl living in Spain. But it really kind of hurt my ego and hurt my soul in a way when I went back home and I didn't feel quite the same as well. And that was something that was very hard to deal with. So when I came back to Spain, I remember thinking, I got to make this work now because I don't feel at home and I need to make something happen. What happened? I got into my master's. So I get into my master's. I'm very passionate of what I'm doing, but I still feel very weird and empty inside. And I was actually not realizing dealing with terrible anxiety. I would break into cold sweats. I would literally have like chest pains. My stomach would act up. I would not feel quite well, but then that would pass. So it was just a lot of things that would happen all at once. Another thing that attributed to it was kind of navigating the bureaucratic system. I cannot tell you how many countless times I've actually cried in front of public, what's it called? A civil servant. I had to think about it. I was thinking about it in Spanish. A civil servant that is trying to, it was basically a paper pusher trying to get my piece of paperwork through and just trying to deal. And I don't know how people do it when they don't speak the language, but I speak the language quite well. And even then, I still have issues because I don't understand the unwritten rules that opposed to somebody who's lived here all their life kind of understand. It's exhausting on your relationships when you're constantly asking questions. So it's very difficult to find people that are patient enough to explain things to you. Because, also it's exhausting for them as well, and you have to be sympathetic to that. So basically, how those things came about were just a combination of constantly adapting and constantly proving yourself, which in case ends up creating self-doubt. So in creating self-doubt, you definitely feel like in a way that you're not enough and you've made all this sacrifice, but for what? So those little things kind of got to my psyche. And then when I finally hit rock bottom where I realized I needed to get help was when I was doing my master's, and before I went to my master's class I had a panic attack, and then afterwards I had another panic attack when I got home. And I was with my partner at the time, and my little partner in crime, and he always would get there after me, but I ended up getting there later. And he was like, "How was your day?" And I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah, ugly cry. And I remember freaking out about it and just couldn't express how I felt. And also, I can only imagine how he was feeling, like, oh my God, I can't help her. I don't know what's going on. She's lost her goddamn mind. But at the same time, it was just, I remember thinking, I have to do something. So one of the things that I definitely hope that you get from this video is that either before you decide to move abroad, you ask yourself those 10 questions. I will link a blog post that I put below, but that I've written before. But also think about having like a person, I don't know if you're into psychology or whatever. I don't think it works for everybody. You have to be a communicative person in order for therapy to work. But I definitely think that being with someone that can kind of hear you out and be objective with you is extremely important when you decide to move abroad. Just because you're gonna get sick, you're gonna, in those moments when you fall ill and you're just very vulnerable, um, it's very difficult to deal with and it's very difficult to navigate. And also, people that you may be surrounded with, they have their own problems, you know, they don't want to deal with that. And you have to be very proactive and making sure that your mental health is in check. And I think that that was one of the things when I would volunteer and also work at at a teaching abroad program, is that people didn't realize they were making these life changing situations until they had already crossed the pond, and then by that time they've already decided and made a commitment. So, not that I'm deterring anybody from doing this, it's just, it's something that I didn't realize I brought it up in the last video. I just kind of like put it out there and discussed about my anxiety. But I definitely think that it's something that is not talked about because I cannot tell you how many times I've had to restart this little video because it's very uncomfortable to talk about a painful thing. But at the same time, realizing that you're not alone and that it's kind of part of the process of living abroad, and that, yeah, you are going to experience anxiety. And that's because when you're away, everything feels, you feel everything 10 times fold. So when you're really happy, you're on a high. You're extremely happy. And when you're really sad, you're so sad that you feel like the world is collapsing around you. And I consider myself to be a person who is a very strong person and very strong-willed, aka stubborn. But I recognize that, and it still gets the best of me at times, and I'm still working through it. The one thing that I did find solace is the fact that I will always have anxiety, but that I will have to learn how to deal with it forever, for the rest of my life. And it's okay. And that just like how I'm never going to be Spanish. If I decide to make Spain my permanent home forever, or I am never going to be Spanish, and that's okay. I'm going to be a Texan girl that lives in Spain who can kind of blend in and kind of not, and I'm okay with that. But those are definitely things that you want to question and ask yourself before you decide to move abroad, because I think that it will definitely make it a smoother transition for yourself. And getting someone that can be objective with you, whether if it's somebody that kind of mentors you or you have a friend that kind of explains things to you and has the patience, go for it. Don't take those things for granted. And also pay attention to your body, because your body tells you so much. I ignored a lot of the signs because I was too focused in trying to travel and do this and do that. But by the time that I came to my senses and tried to figure out a place for myself, I had nothing else to give. And so I think that's why I'm making this video. It's kind of to give this little piece of lesson that I learned from a really tough and horrible time. but knowing that I'm not alone, and sometimes you just have to be ballsy and just talk about it. So if you have anything, you can also send me a private email. I know this is not a very comfortable subject, but I definitely think that it's something that needs to be spoken about and be more open and not so taboo. And I can't believe I'm actually talking about this actually, but oh well. I'm just gonna end it right there, and there should be no shame in it. So that's the reason I decided to do that. And thank you for those of you, which I will not name, that send those messages um, about wanting to know more about the anxiety and how I dealt with it and how it all came about. I think that a lot of you had really interesting questions, and hopefully I answered them in those private emails, but I also felt really compelled that I had to make a video about this and kind of discuss it. So there's going to be a lot more things. And also, if you're a teacher teaching abroad, I'm going to send a link down below if you'd like to talk about and share your experience about teaching abroad. We have people that are going to be featured from actually all parts of the world, not just in Europe, not just in Spain. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope to see you soon. And if you like this, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And there's going to be a couple of things that are kind of in the works that I'm really excited about. So have a great evening, and bye.